It's so good to be here this evening. Thank you so much for joining me. So let's discuss about how do I know if my hormones are imbalanced. So very excited to share this with you today. Um, and let's discuss how you would actually recognize that your hormones are imbalanced. So, what sort of symptoms and signs you'd be able to recognize, and the best way to actually check your hormones to actually determine whether there's an imbalance there or not. If you have any questions or comments as we go through this evening, please feel free to pop them in the chat box below and I'll answer them as we go through the live, or if you're watching this replay, I'll go in and answer them for you later on. Please hit the like and love hearts if you're enjoying the content tonight as well. I would really appreciate that. And yeah, let's get cracking. So, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Michelle Cooke. I am a hormone and fertility naturopath, and I will be taking you through this evening on a little journey about hormones. So, what does hormone imbalance mean? Basically, hormone imbalance is just when your body is producing too much or too little of one or more of your hormones, and that's detectable in the blood. And, there's plenty of different hormones in the body that are produced by different glands. But today we're going to zone in to those reproductive hormones, okay, or those girly hormones. So, what I'm referring to here is basically estrogen, progesterone, and one of the hormones that gets left off the wagon a lot in terms of women's hormones is testosterone, and we need to remember that that is part of our makeup as well. Obviously, women don't have as much as a man would in terms of testosterone, but we do have it in differing amounts, and it is very important to hormone health and general health as well, as you'll soon discover when we go through the hormones and the symptoms to recognize. So, hormone imbalance, I discussed what that is, and basically, hormones are the messengers in your body. So, it's telling your body what to do and when to do it. Okay? So, how would I actually know if my hormones are imbalanced? Let's discuss that. So, your body knows when something is not quite right, it's actually producing a symptom or a sign to let you know, hey, there's something not quite right here. So, even though it might be an inconvenience to you, your body's just simply trying to tell you that something's not quite right in the body. So, basically, if there's differing symptoms depending on which hormone is high or low. So let's go through each one so that you can sort of gather a bit more of an understanding of, what sort of symptoms are related to each hormone. So, for example, estrogen excess or having too much estrogen would produce symptoms like this. So, it could be heavy periods, it could be irregular periods, PMS is another one, sore boobs, fibrocystic breasts, which is basically lumpy breasts. Fluid retention is another one if you've got too much estrogen. Weight gain, particularly around the midsection, so around the tummy, around the bum, and around the hips. Low libido is another one. Mood swings, fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, and ovarian cysts are all conditions of estrogen dominance or too much sort of estrogen in the body, and it's a big driver of those conditions as well. Acne breakouts as well, particularly in the first half of the cycle, so before ovulation and also around ovulation too. That can indicate that you've got too much estrogen. So you might not have all of those symptoms, you might have a few of them, So yeah, that's important to remember. You don't have to have all of these symptoms to be experiencing hormone imbalance. Estrogen deficiency or not enough estrogen. So that could be dry skin, it could be hot flushes and night sweats. So we see that with perimenopause and menopause as well, don't we? Irregular periods, amenorrhea, so the period is absent, so there's no period. Moody and irritable, because hormones have such a big impact on our moods and emotions as well. Depression is a big one. Trouble concentrating. Weak or brittle bones, because estrogen has an impact on our bone mineral density. So it can actually impact that and increase the risk of osteopenia or osteoporosis. Trouble concentrating is another one as well. Sore boobs, vaginal dryness is a big one with estrogen deficiency, and headaches as well. Another hormone imbalance could be progesterone excess, so too much progesterone. That could lead to weight gain, tiredness, depression, sore boobs, anxiety, irritable, acne, and bloating. If you've got progesterone deficiency, so not enough, which I see quite a lot of, you could have short menstrual cycles, you could have irregular periods, because if you've got a progesterone deficiency, remember that that's generally produced after ovulation. So you ovulate, the egg is released, and a little sac is left behind, and it's called the corpus luteum, and this will actually secrete the progesterone in that phase moving forward. So if you're not ovulating, that can lead to progesterone deficiency. Bloating is another one. Tiredness, brain fog, anxiety. That's a big one, because progesterone is like an anti-anxiety type of hormone. So it's important to keep us calm, cool, and collected. Depression, sleep issues is another one. Spotting is a big one, a big sign of progesterone deficiency. Sore boobs as well. Fibrocystic breasts, so again, those lumpy kind of breasts, you can feel like little lumps there. What about testosterone excess, so too much testosterone? And we see that with polycystic ovarian syndrome, don't we? So there can be increased muscle mass, there can be deep voice, there can be your boobs can actually reduce in size. So again, you might not have all of these symptoms, there may be just a little collection of those. Acne is another one, balding, thinning hair, some women might have an enlarged clitoris, excess body hair, so particularly on the face or somewhere on the body, so it might be chest, your back, or otherwise. Irregular periods, mood swings, absence of periods is another one, and low libido. Testosterone deficiency, what about that? So that could be lack of motivation. It could be low libido. That's a big one in women, isn't it? Tiredness, because testosterone is all about stamina and endurance and libido and all of those kind of things. Loss of muscle strength is a biggie, because it's really important to maintain muscle mass and strength. So you might experience loss of muscle mass as well. Inability to concentrate, mood changes, so you might be feeling more anxious or depressed. Weight gain around the midsection, so there's that symptom again. So you can see how it's easy to get confused as to kind of which hormone is deficient or in excess. It might be just one of those, but more than likely it's a combination, because usually the hormones will interact and affect each other. Loss of bone density is another one, so that's really important to maintain bone density as well. Irregular menstrual cycles, weight gain around the middle, which I've already mentioned, Vaginal dryness, so that's another one with testosterone deficiency too. Sleep issues as well. Hair loss, dry and thinning skin, so that can be another issue with testosterone deficiency. So what causes hormone imbalance? So there's so many different things, and this isn't an exhaustive list by any means. There's definitely more there, but we'll just discuss a few key ones. So stress. So remember, stress will actually shut off our reproductive hormones because it's a survival mechanism. It's not actually a safe time to reproduce. So in terms of fight or flight and surviving whatever it is, that impending danger, the best thing to do is shut off those reproductive hormones and produce cortisol. So we've got that response of, either fighting whatever it is or running away. And the thing is, there's this precursor hormone called pregnenolone, which is the precursor to make cortisol to help us adapt to stress, but it also helps produce progesterone. And only one hormone can be produced at one time. So the thing is, if you're stressed, it's going to steal pregnenolone to make cortisol to help you deal with that stressful situation. So that's going to steal it away from the production of progesterone, which of course in turn will produce hormone imbalance, won't it? And the other thing that could be contributing to hormone imbalance could be nutrient deficiency. So this is a huge one that I see all the time in the clinic. So it could be things like vitamin D deficiency, zinc deficiency, magnesium deficiency, vitamin B deficiency, iodine deficiency, and iron deficiency. All of these contribute to hormone imbalances. Poor liver function, because we need to remember that our liver is very, very important to detoxify hormones. So your body does what it needs to do with hormones in the body. It does its job, and then your liver will actually detoxify and remove them from the body. So if it's not operating properly, they're not going to be broken down and metabolized and removed from the body, so they can recirculate and actually cause excess problems with that hormone because they're being reabsorbed. Same deal with constipation. So our digestive system and bowels need to be operating really smoothly to get rid of excess hormones as well. Otherwise, there's no way out, right? There's nowhere for it to go. So it actually gets reabsorbed back into the body. And this is what commonly happens with estrogen excess or too much estrogen in the body type conditions. Another one is microbiome dysbiosis. So what is that? So a microbiome is actually the friendly community of bacteria that you've got in your gut. So if there's an imbalance there, so there's too much bad bacteria and not enough good bacteria, that will cause hormone imbalance too. For example, there's a specific what do you call it? bacteria that are called estrobolome. So they actually metabolize and detoxify excess estrogen out of the body. If there's not enough of these, that will mean that estrogen, again, is not going to be cleared out from the body properly. Not consuming enough good healthy sources of fats. So a lot of people are scared by fats, but we need to actually consume it in the diet. So making sure that we include things like organic coconut oil when we're cooking, olive oil for cooking if it's at lower temperatures. Fish, so oily fish is a great one, a good source of omega-3. Things like chia seeds as well. And your plant oils as well, so flaxseed oil, etc. Because the thing is, the body needs cholesterol to actually make and build our hormones. So if we're not having enough of that, the body's like, what the heck? Like, how am I going to make these hormones? So we need to actually be consuming them to make our hormones and make sure that we've got enough so that we've got a nice healthy balance. Not eating enough is a concern as well. If you don't eat enough, your body goes into sort of a fight or flight mode. It's going into survival mode and it's thinking that it's going into starvation. So of course survival is a key thing. So in that case it will actually shut off your reproductive hormones as a mode of survival. Thyroid issues. Now this is a biggie. I see this a lot in clinic. So if your thyroid is underactive, so if it's hypothyroidism, that can actually influence your hormone balance as well. And if your thyroid is operating too fast, so if it's hyperthyroidism, that can also influence your hormone balance as well. Also, if you've heard of Hashimoto's thyroiditis, that's an autoimmune type of thyroid condition. This can actually impact your hormone balance as well. Because remember, there's other glands in the body that influence our ovaries and production of our girly hormones as well. We need to remember that. Inflammation in the body or inflammatory foods will actually cause hormone imbalance as well. And hormone imbalance will actually indirectly influence inflammation. So it's like a vicious cycle there as well. So that's important to remember. Blood sugar issues. So if you've got high glucose and high insulin, this can be an issue for your girly hormones as well. And the main reason of this, or one of the reasons, is because it causes inflammation in the body. Remember that if your body is in a state of inflammation, this can lead to hormone imbalance. Amazing, isn't it? Just see if there's any questions so far. Oh, hi Erin. Nice of you to join us. You're such a wealth of knowledge. Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you so much. Okay, so what else are we discussing here? So I just wanted to actually mention as well, in terms of high testosterone, there are specific causes or reasons for that as well. So obviously there's PCOS as a reason. Thyroid issues can actually lead to high testosterone as well. Insulin resistance, which again is commonly found with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And congenital adrenal hyperplasia. So that's a condition that you can be born with at birth that can actually influence high testosterone levels as well. High estrogen. So that can be due to a number of those different conditions that I mentioned that are estrogen dominant conditions. So PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, ovarian cysts, all those kind of things can lead to high estrogen, and high estrogen can actually drive those conditions as well, so it's important to manage that. Low progesterone, so that could be a result of ovulation not occurring, so we spoke about that earlier. Hypothyroidism, so when your thyroid's functioning a bit slower than usual. High cortisol due to stress can lead to low progesterone, which we spoke about before. And high prolactin, so that's a hormone that's produced by your pituitary gland, that can lead to low progesterone as well. So there's so many different things, isn't there? And Erin said, oh yes, what about excessive chin hair? Yeah, Erin, that's a good one. So excessive chin hair, that can be due to polycystic ovaries or polycystic ovarian syndrome. And generally that's driven by high androgens. So things like high testosterone can actually lead to hirsutism, which is sort of excessive hair growth, or hair growth in particular areas like the chin, the chest, the back, etc. So looking at those androgens would be important. Also things like high insulin and glucose, that can actually influence, so your blood sugar levels can actually influence hair growth as well. So there's a few other driving factors as well, but those two are the main ones to be looking at for sure. So making sure that your androgens aren't too high and what your insulin and glucose levels are like as well. Good question. So the best way to check your hormones. So the ideal way is to actually work out which hormones are the issue. So we need to find out that we need to actually do a blood test. That's going to be the best way to find out. And I see it time and time again that the blood tests are being done on the wrong day, or all the hormones are being tested on the one day. And this isn't a good way to do it because it's very hard and difficult to determine exactly what's going on. So you need to make sure that you're actually getting the blood test done on the correct day. So for example, if you were testing estrogen, you would actually be best to actually get that checked on day 2 or 3 of your menstrual cycle. So day 1 is the first day of your period. So it's the 2nd or 3rd day of your period is the best time to get estrogen tested because it's more of a baseline sort of understanding of estrogen. Testosterone, now that can be tested any day of the cycle. That one's not fussy, doesn't really matter with that one. Progesterone, you need to be testing that 7 days after ovulation. So for example, if you have a 28-day cycle, generally you would be ovulating around day 14, so you would get progesterone tested 7 days after that, which is about day 21. Now, not everyone has a 28-day cycle, that's very textbook, and everyone has kind of varying cycles. So it's very important to actually determine then when did ovulation actually happen. Because it can be sort of difficult to know. Generally you'd have to get it tested 7 days after ovulation, right? But if you don't know when that is, that's going to be difficult. So you need to actually look at what are the signs of ovulation. So the signs of ovulation, or when you're fertile, is that fertile mucus. So remember I spoke about that in another video about fertile mucus indicating that ovulation has potentially happened or is about to happen, and that's what you actually look out for. So that change in cervical mucus to that more fertile mucus, that's when you'd be thinking, okay, I'm probably ovulating around now, and then you would count 7 days after that. Another way you could determine the actual time to test progesterone would be to look at basal body temperature. So taking your temperature each and every day and then noticing when there's a dip, and then it rises about 0.5 degrees. So it's a very small increment, but when it does that rise, so it's risen 0.5 degrees higher than the previous temperatures, the previous 6, that shows you that ovulation is taking place, okay? So what you would do is actually count 7 days at the start of that rise, because ovulation can occur at the start of the rise or during the rise or a few days after. So that's when we kind of determine, okay, we need to be testing progesterone roughly 7 days after that. The other thing you could do is actually kind of look at the last 3 cycles and actually work out a bit of an average. So if your cycles are, around a certain length, you kind of average it out and say, okay, I'm probably ovulating around this time. So, roughly 7 days after that, that's when I would go and test progesterone. But probably the first 2 methods would be a little bit better and easier to determine when that is, so that you can be a little bit more accurate with it. Now, so that's if you're cycles are a bit more irregular, so it can be a little bit difficult there. Now, okay, so I spoke about blood tests, so that is important. So the other thing is there's 3 different types of estrogen. So you've got estradiol, which is commonly tested in the blood, but they don't commonly look at the other 2 hormones, which are estriol and estrogen. So these can be actually detected in a salivary test. You can actually look at all those 3 hormones together and see what they're doing. And also a urinary metabolite test, which looks at the metabolites of those 3 hormones as well, which a blood test wouldn't pick up on. So that's another interesting one to look at too. So, and it's important to remember that some types of estrogen are more protective, whereas others aren't really. So it's good to be looking at all different types of estrogen, not just estradiol, even though that's important. So as you can see, there's so many different symptoms and signs that your body is telling you in regards to your hormones being imbalanced. So it's very clever at telling you what's wrong. It's sort of waving that flag for you as such. Even though it's an inconvenience, it is letting you know. So I hope that gives you a bit of an understanding of, hormone imbalance, what it is, and it really depends upon which hormone is high or low as to kind of, which hormone is the issue. And we need to remember that, for example, if there's too much estrogen, that will tend to push our progesterone a bit lower. And if estrogen's kind of too high relative to progesterone, there'll be progesterone deficiency. So they sort of influence each other, don't they? So that's important to remember too. So just before we finish up today, I've got some exciting news. So on the 3rd of August, I will be presenting a webinar, so it will be online, and it's periods not the same after COVID. So if you've noticed after you've had COVID that you're having sort of heavier periods, if they're more irregular, if your periods have gone missing, if your bleed is shorter, if it's longer, if there's more pain. All these symptoms have been reported in the research and have been happening to women. So if that's you, you should definitely come along to my webinar. It's in 3 weeks' time, and I'm so excited to deliver to you all the information that I've collated for you, and we'll be going through what those changes are, so that you can understand what is happening to menstrual cycles, periods, and hormones. Why it's actually happening. So what's actually happening to actually make your periods and menstrual cycles go that way, and tips on how you can actually improve that hormone balance, your periods and your menstrual cycles. And I'll actually be including a free guide as well, so you'll walk away with that. And it will have those tips there for you too, so that's something to take away. The webinar will be recorded as well, so if you can't make it on that date, that's not a problem. I'll give you the recording. It will go for 60 minutes, and it's at 7 o'clock on the 3rd of August, so 7 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time. So I'd really love for you to join. I'll pop a link below so that you can have a look. There'll be a bit more information there, and you can book your ticket there. If you're watching on Instagram, there's actually a link in my bio for my event, so you can go on and buy the tickets there. I would so love for you to join me, and I'm really, really excited about that event in 3 weeks' time. So please come and join. Now, thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you have any questions or comments, please pop them below. As I mentioned, I'll just see if there's any more here. Yay, how exciting, Erin said. Yeah, I'm so excited to present it. Okay, we've got a question here. What's an example of a treatment plan for a hormone imbalance? Can you just give a little bit more information there? Do you mean if you went to see a naturopath, or like foods that I'd recommend, or what type of thing do you mean there? Can you just pop a bit more information and I'll answer that for you? Okay, the other comment is I definitely noticed a difference and it's slowly coming back to normal. Iron deficiency was a big part of it. Yeah, for sure. So I assume that you're talking about COVID and the impact on your periods. Um, yeah, and we do definitely go, we'll be talking about, the impact that it has on nutrients as well. So I'll deep dive into that and explain a bit more about why it actually causes those hormone imbalances and period issues for sure. So yeah, that's been fantastic to talk to you this evening. And I will see you next week at 7:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, same time, same place, talking about something hormone and or fertility related. So I hope you have a wonderful evening. It's been my absolute pleasure, and I'll see you next week. Bye.